Hey guys, today I will just be playing an obby, putting on a story time, so enjoy.
So me and my best friend were kind of just like swiping through Tinder for fun. And then she came across this really hot dude. So of course, she swiped right and they talked all night long. And he said he had an Android so he couldn't FaceTime, but his messages were blue, so I thought something was off. She was too blinded to see that something was up in the first place because she was messaging with a really hot guy. So about a week of them just like texting back and forth and I guess getting to know each other, they decided that they were gonna meet up. So they both decided that they were gonna meet up at an Olive Garden near them. And you see, as her best friend, of course, I'm gonna have to go with her. So I got dressed up and I sat about 5 tables away from her. And we got there about 30 minutes earlier than we were supposed to be there. Okay, so my best friend had 3 bowls of fettuccine alfredo before he got there. So when he got there, it wouldn't look like she ate a lot. Then I see my dad walk in, all dressed up and fancy with a bow tie and everything. This story time just gets so much more funnier, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend was catfished by my dad. Continuing with the story, I see my dad walk into the restaurant all dressed up. Mind you, my dad's married. To my mother, of course. So I was like, ooh, my dad and my mom are finally going on a date together. And then he looks over to my best friend and walks over to the table. When I tell you my heart dropped, my heart has never sank so deep inside me so fast. He sits down and asks her, is this Mackenzie? When I tell you I busted out laughing so freaking hard I fell out of my chair. And almost everybody in the restaurant turned around and looked at me, and so did my dad. And I walk over to the table and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? My best friend is literally just sitting there in shock, no emotion on her face. Then he looks at us, he looks really confused, his face goes blank, and then he goes, I was just trying to teach y'all girls a lesson. I told my mom and I was just getting a laugh out of it, and then she looked through his phone and said that he was meeting up with a bunch of 14-year-old girls. So comes to find out, my dad is a pedophile. My mom kicked him out, and if you're one of those girls, I really do apologize.
So when I was a sophomore in high school,
What's the most twisted family rule you've ever heard of? When I was 7 and my little brother was born, I said, is it a boy or a girl? And my mother pressed her hand over my mouth and told me I would never speak again. Those were the last words I spoke for 11 years. The silence thing wasn't new in our family. It came from the religious community where both my parents were raised. The rule was that only the youngest child in the family was allowed to speak, so the older siblings couldn't corrupt them. I had 3 older siblings, none of whom I'd ever heard speak. My sister was only 2 years older than me, so she'd been silent almost her whole life. Mom still had her voice because she was the youngest in her own family, but dad had been silenced when he was 5 and his little sister was born. Mom absolutely loved this rule and would mock dad constantly for his silence, saying things like, it's so peaceful without your stupid opinions, while he could only communicate through gestures that she usually ignored. Our house was eerily quiet, just mom's voice, and for the first 7 years of my life, mine. But then my baby brother Ian was born. Mom said, you've had 7 years to say everything you needed to say, and now it's his turn to be the special one. Big girls don't need voices when they have a baby brother to protect. She told me that if I ever made any sound again, including crying or laughing, she would send me away to live with strangers who didn't love me like she did. She put tape over my mouth for the first week to help me remember my new role in the family while my older siblings looked at me with haunted sympathy. Overnight, I became invisible while my new brother was treated like a precious prince. I realized this was how my older siblings had felt this whole time, and now I was in hell with them. Mom homeschooled all of us to keep our family's traditions secret, but Ian got real lessons where he could raise his hands to ask questions, just like I used to. Now, I just read silently with my older siblings. Mom would terrify me by showing me charts proving that Ian got stupider whenever I made any sound, and I genuinely believed I was stealing his intelligence. Look how much damage you did with that cough, she'd say, showing me fake declining numbers. Do you want to ruin his future? I became obsessed with perfect silence, afraid that even breathing too loudly would hurt him. Ian never appreciated our silence. He'd deliberately break things in the house and blame his older siblings, knowing we couldn't defend ourselves. He'd whisper cruel things like, you're so ugly and worthless and you can't even tell anyone I said it, while Mom praised him for being patient with his disabled siblings. Watching my dad suffer under the silence rule became excruciating now that I knew that was what my future would be too. One evening during dinner, I watched him try to gesture something important to Mom, only for her to wave him away dismissively while my brother laughed at him. Something inside me snapped, and I stood up from the table and said the first words I'd spoken in 11 years. Listen to him. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Ian started screaming, I'm getting stupid, while clutching his head dramatically. Mom's careful mask slipped completely as she turned on me with pure rage and yelled, you're killing him! She locked me in what they called the silence room, a soundproof basement chamber where I was supposed to reflect on what I'd done. I'd seen my sister sent there once because she screamed when she broke her arm. My brother faked a seizure the next day, claiming that my voice had poisoned his brain, and the whole extended family mobilized to restore order. They produced fake medical records, forced my older siblings to sign statements against me, and threatened to have me declared legally incompetent. I actually started doubting my own sanity when my oldest brother, who'd been silent for 23 years, whispered, just be quiet and it all goes away. But then someone ended it all, my father. He came down to the basement one night when my mother was beating the sound out of me, while I bit my lips shut to keep from crying out, and he shouted, enough! His voice was rusty and cracked, but it shattered Mom's control completely. He revealed that he'd been secretly recording everything for years as insurance, documenting our family's ritual abuse in case he ever found the courage to act. Mom had a complete breakdown and she and Ian sobbed, clutching each other. Dad's evidence was overwhelming enough for authorities to intervene, and 2 of my siblings and I escaped together. But the damage was deep. One of sisters chose to stay silent because she was too psychologically broken to handle the idea of speaking again. She still never said a word and lives in a nursing home now at 22 years old. I'm not in contact with my parents, but last I heard my dad has gone back to silence too and retreated under my mother's rule. I'm now 21 and living independently, but my voice still cracks and fails me during important conversations because
I love you all so much. My sparkles, have a great day, and know that you're loved.